in a general conversation, like if I'm talking in a circle of moms, we can laugh about this. Yeah, I yell at my kid every day. Yeah, what a dingbat, what a Nimrod. He did something. But if a social worker who was processing the removal of my child or making sure I'm a good parent said, how often do you yell at your child? I might consider rewording.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm so excited to talk with my friend Richard from Adoption Adventures. He's been training parents for a while and sharing those experiences, not just the good stuff of you can do it, but you know, the gritty, the honest as well. And I appreciate that so much. So I look forward to our conversation today. Welcome.
Thank you very much. No, it's amazing to be a guest with you. It's very hard if we think about anything. If we think of any self-evaluation, it's so difficult to self-evaluate and to. It's okay to say, oh, you know, these are my bad points, but it's not easy to blame yourself, is it? And it's not easy to say, you know, actually, I've done this and I'm a bad person, or I've done this and do you know what?
And then have them write it down.
Yeah, that's a tall order, isn't it? That's asking a lot from people.
Right.
Particularly, it's almost like social worker syndrome, isn't it? Because, you know, when a social worker, I always use the analogy. When I was younger, I used to play with sort of toy soldiers and stuff, and I used to collect the Star Wars figurines.
Oh yeah.
And one of them was like the Obi-Wan Kenobi or the Darth Vader. And they, in their arms, they had a little sort of slot sort of cut out, and the lightsaber would go in there, and you'd push it out. So they would then have the lightsaber. Whenever I think of social workers, I've got that image that their pen is attached to their eyes, and it just flicks out of their hands, and they're ready to write at any moment. And you know, I have that in my head of social workers. They're not that bad, but that's definitely what was in my mind. And that concept of these people are there, and they're not there to write about your best qualities. They're there to highlight and analyze what you're doing, why, and what the effects on that. So, yeah, you know, if I'm asked about sort of, if anyone is asked about their parenting style by a social worker, naturally you're already on guard, aren't you?
Yeah,
you're
definitely
defensive. So it's a tough one, and it's tough to ask anyone to then give a real, true, accurate reading on what that actually looks like.
Yeah, I would be very intimidated. So here's another one I think, just with an older child who already has established relationships and ideas of who's safe and who to love and who to identify with, what do you think happens in that connection and falling in love? Like, how long does it take to fall in love with someone who already has established relationships and ideas of love, compared to a baby who you fall in love, but the baby doesn't know any better, so you just create this picture, he fell in love too. You know, because they're not deciding, but an older child can decide. What's that like to fall in love with an older child?
So I think that's an excellent question. So between my husband and I, we are sort of we class ourselves as yin and yang, the opposite spectrums. So I am away with the fairies. I'm up in the clouds. You know, I am definitely the one who flew far too close to the sun. I'm there. Whereas my husband is much more grounded, so much so that his feet are probably touching the Earth's core. So you know, we've got that definite difference. When I first saw the video of our little dude, so that's how they sort of showed us profile. They showed us a profile of little dude, and sort of instantly I sort of hit my husband and went, right, that's him, that's the one, I want that one. Yeah. And then we met with his social worker, who then sort of gave us photos. I would say it was almost instantly, I was like, yeah, I love him. Yep. It's real. This is it. This is my son. Whereas,
But that's the same when you're pregnant, you love this baby you've never seen as well. So that's not
absolutely,
unusual.
absolutely. Whereas for Dad, he felt that connection straight away. You know, when that video was there, he was like, "Yeah, no, there's something special about this kid." Whether he felt sort of the same level of love that I felt, I don't know. For him, it was, I imagine, when he first met Little Dude, that's when the spark flew. Now, on the return side of that, looking at Little Dude when he first met us and how quickly he bonded, connected, and fell into loving us,
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting because if I were to ask him, he tells us that it was within, sometimes he'll say within a day, sometimes he says within a couple of days, other times he's like, right, it took 2 weeks for me to do the introductions, then move in with you. As soon as I moved in with you, I loved you.
Oh.
For me, however, I felt it. He would say the words, but I felt it when he would call us dad and daddy. When he first started calling us daddy, he was saying it, but I almost feel like he was saying it like that was my name.
A title,
So
not.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And I remember it was within the first 6 months. I remember the first time I was walking past and he said something, he felt, thanks, Daddy. And the way he sort of pronounced Daddy was different.
Yeah.
There was emotion behind the word. And it was at that moment that I was like, he's he's just fallen into loving me. He's there now. He believes me now.
Is
And
that
that was a,
like when you're dating and you say each other's first names for a while and then it transitions to babe, sweetie, honey?
yeah, I suppose it could be. Yeah, yeah. You get sort of familiar. You get comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You start realizing actually there's more here.
Mm-hmm.
And you know you're here to stay, or you're certainly in this for the long term.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I would say for him it probably took about 6 months, there or thereabouts. He was falling in love all that while, and when he talks to us and tells us that he loved us from day one, three, or I think that that's him letting us know that he liked us, he
Okay.
felt comfortable with us, and he felt himself wanting to care for us and
Mm-hmm.
going through the process of falling in love with us, I suppose, um, which which I think is quite a special journey in itself.
Yeah, there is
Uh,
a mature speculation testing period, which is
mm,
fair of any kind of relationship, dating
yeah,
wise and so on, but there's a mature, do I like this? I don't know, I like this but not that. So there is more to it. It's more complex, but that
yeah,
progression is still there. You just got to wait it out, wait a little longer. You can't make it up in your head like with an infant. I don't
yeah,
think infants instantly love. They don't know what love is yet. So
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
unrealistic.
How about for yourselves? How was that journey for you?
Oh, well, I don't know. It's hard for me to understand my son's concepts of emotional or relational beliefs. So he is on the autism spectrum, and so we have
Okay.
some disconnects there. And
Mm,
currently he's learning that I can believe something different than he believes. And this is
okay.
blowing his mind. He like, we're
Wow.
not Jedis. And he tries to say, Mom, you told me yesterday I could eat the rest of the cake. And I said, no, I didn't. And he says, yeah, I remember this. And I go, oh no. But I do find myself again going, did I? I don't know. He's good at it. But if I asked him truly, and there's examples in the book, I can ask him, when did you start to trust me? I mean, basic,
Yeah.
when did you trust me not to hit you when I go to like give you a hug, that reach?
Mm,
And he'll just say, oh, yesterday. So I don't
yeah.
know. I don't
Yeah.
have a clear, like, I don't know that we will have that. Maybe, I hope. But
Mm,
to love somebody is something that has to be renewed for him
yeah.
repeatedly, the definition of love. So he could actually connect and fall in love with me multiple times, which
Mm,
is kind of cool and sad. And it is what it is.
yeah. Yeah. It's quite a mixed one there, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So we do have to keep reestablishing certain understandings of a mother-son relationship and what that love is.
Mm,
Because he has to also learn that a father-son relationship and that love is different. So because he loves me does not automatically mean he loves daddy. And because he
yeah.
loves daddy does not automatically mean that he loves these other people. So that's very confusing because
Mm,
love is different with every single person on the planet. I can imagine
yeah.
that's extremely overwhelming. Plus, they
Mm,
all believe different things. So, whew.
yeah. I mean, let's be honest. Working out human emotions and human sort of portrayal of feelings, even with all filters in place, is a
Yeah.
nightmare. So you add any sort of altered filter, you're in deep water already, aren't you?
Yeah. Or the idea I can love you, but not necessarily like you at the moment.
Yeah, yeah.
How can you consolidate these difficult things? Or I can love you, but you don't love me. Ooh,
Mm,
because my beliefs must be your beliefs. So there's just, oh baby, we have a journey
yeah,
still.
absolutely. Yeah, it's it's an interesting one. It is.
Well, Richard, I have enjoyed this conversation immensely, and it has taken on a whole character of itself, and I love it. And I like the examples you were giving because they're very real. And
Mm,
of course, we are a little guarded. Our babies are our babies, and they are our treasure, and we're going to protect them in every way possible. And so, my last question for you, because we are both public figures, which sounds funny to say, is to what degree is your child part of this? So for me, my son was part of the writing. I read every
mhm,
single chapter to him and he added some comments and some he used some bad words and he was very serious about, mom,
mm,
put this in just the way I write it and this is how I felt at this moment. And I tried to filter a lot of that out, but I was like, hey, that's so he's very much a
yeah.
part of this process. Um, so there's a degree of disclosure because he has decided I'm okay disclosing this information. So how
Yeah.
does that work for you to have your child's story be out there?
So for us, obviously, I've anonymised Little Dude by giving him the title of Little Dude. And he asked me recently, he said, why am I Little Dude?
Ooh,
Um,
good.
he said, why not my name? I said, because one day when you're older, I said, I'm putting your story out there in the public domain. I said, you might not want people to know this about you. And he said, no, that wouldn't bother me. I said, yes, but at the moment it wouldn't. But what about when you're going for job interviews and things like that? And he said to me, he said, if my story helps one adopter on their journey, I'm okay with it.
Wow.
Um, and now, when I deliver any training, I ask my adopters, if they would like any questions for Little Dude. And
Hmm.
he then records an interview answering questions for them because he wants to be involved and he wants to help others. Um, and particularly when it comes to adopting older children.
Yeah.
Um, he, his story is that he lived with his birth family for 3.5 years, then a foster family for 3.5 years. Then he moved in with us. And he says, whilst he wouldn't change his journey because it meant that he got to live with us, so it was worth it, in the same breath, he doesn't think it's right that older children wait as long as they do.
Yeah.
So he wants to be such an advocate for older children. So for him, he feels really excited that other people are doing this journey and going on this adventure. So he's really excited to help others along this. So,
Yeah. That's awesome. He's totally signed on. I love that
yeah,
approach. Yeah, if there's anybody who can benefit from this, if anybody's feeling scared, if anybody's feeling apprehensive, or just has a couple extra questions they don't want to ask the social worker, because the social worker will write it down.
absolutely.
Send a message to Richard at adoption.adventures. Send a message to me, adoption to life. We'll answer it on the down low. Totally
Absolutely.
honest, totally no bias, nothing. We'll tell you how it is. And just know that we are going to encourage you to consider those older adoptions because, oh baby, wouldn't have it any other way.
Too true. Very true.
Well, thank you again, Richard. Tell us one more time where people can hear your podcast and hear more about you.
So, my podcast is called Adoption Adventures. It's on all of the major podcast providers, except for Google Play. I cannot get it on there for some reason, but all of the others, it's there. And if anyone would like to get in touch, it's adoptionadventures123@gmail.com.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.